Welcome to Weight Loss and Wellness for Real, the podcast where people like you get the practical solutions and support you need to permanently lose the physical and mental weight so you can feel better and live the life you really want to live in the body and mind you really want to be living in. If you're looking to overcome your stress eating, overeating, binging behaviors, and move to a place of food and body freedom, as well as find more meaning and more moments of joy in life, you are in the right place. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and listening today. Before we get started, just a real quick reminder to head to my website, heatherheynen.com. Heynen is spelled Heynen, and sign up for the free monthly newsletter on all things well-being. I always include a high-protein recipe as well as the discount codes for products and services that support this podcast. I never give away your email, so you're never going to get spam emails from signing up, but go over there, sign up, and you will get my free monthly newsletter on all things well-being. Today, I'm really excited. I am talking to Dr. Romie Mustaq. Dr. Romie is a board-certified physician who brings together more than 2 decades of leadership in neurology, integrative medicine, and mindfulness. She is an award-winning speaker working with Fortune 500 companies, professional athletes, and global associations. Her brain shift programs improve mental well-being and help to build a culture of wellness. Dr. Romie serves as Chief Wellness Officer for Great Wolf Resorts. Her expertise is featured in national media, places like NPR, NBC, TED Talks, and Forbes. Her first book, The Busy Brain Cure, published by HarperCollins, was released just a few months ago in January 2024. I'm really excited to talk with her about stress, our busy brains, health, and how to shift. You will learn about practical strategies for brain health and insights for lowering stress and creating a culture of well-being in your personal life. Take a listen. All right, listeners. So you heard a little introduction about Dr. Romie, and I just want to thank you for being here. It's just a pleasure to have you here. I'm so interested in everything you have to say. I've listened to a lot of podcasts where you were interviewed and just kind of fell in love with the message that you're giving. So excited you're here. Maybe you'd just start out by telling our listeners a little bit about you, your background, what inspired that transition from traditional medicine to stress management, kind of how you got to where you're at.
Heather, thank you. And most of all, I thank your listeners. I don't take in today's world any of our time for granted. And so the fact that you've put Heather and I between your ears, I really want to be intentional. And I start and tell you my journey is if you're looking at your life going, I checked all the boxes. I did everything right.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm feeling alone. My intention is that you are not alone. And Heather and I are here with you in this time being, and reach out to us on social media, and we'll put our social media handles here. And
Absolutely.
because that journey starts that way, Heather, I am the daughter of immigrants, and English is my third language. And I had one success mantra growing up that I embodied with the depth of my soul from my father, that was announced in the newborn nursery. I have one daughter and you will become a doctor. And I entered neurology at a time where less than 5% of the brain doctors in America were women. And
That's
I
amazing.
loved my job. I geek out on neuroscience. I was not only seeing patients, but doing cutting edge research on women's brains and hormones, and teaching medical students. And I remember feeling like, am I the only one struggling? Heather, in those days, we did not dare talk about mental health.
Yeah, right.
Not in public, in any sector, the way it is today on podcasts and social media.
So
Thank
true.
goodness for these avenues, let alone in the healthcare system. It could cost my medical license, but I knew something was off. It was like someone had a remote control to my brain. Some days my brain, I was like focused and on point. And other days I was like, my brain cells are on fire and I can't focus and I'm anxious. And it turned out, and we're going to talk about it, these symptoms I had of a busy brain taught me that chronic stress leads to physical disease, and chronic stress can kill you. It almost killed me, and I should have known better. I'm a doctor.
Right.
I ended up in 2010 in life-saving surgery. and waking
Wow.
up thinking, goodness, Heather, my friends on this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
nothing I've learned in medical school at this point is going to help me now. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to do.
Yeah.
And you fast forward to today, we are recording this podcast in
Mm-hmm.
2024. And I, what I thought was an initial global healing journey for myself and finding integrative medicine and mindfulness based stress reduction and cognitive therapy
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just for me, but that aha moment of I'm here to transform brain health and mental health in individuals and
Mm-hmm.
in teams and companies. And maybe I went through my mess so you don't have to go through yours. And if you're in the middle of
Yeah.
your mess, we're not here to judge you, but we're just here to say you're not alone. I
Yeah,
remember how
absolutely.
lonely I was. I don't know. Have you ever been in one of those places, Heather?
Oh, yes, most definitely. Yeah. And to your point, I think when you start talking to people and if you can get into that vulnerable space with them, most people will share that they have been in that place. Now, your story, is a little bit, what I would say, just more intense in regards to physically, to the edge of where you went physically, but a lot of people are in that space as well. Yeah. Mine was more general thyroid stuff that went down, totally downhill.
Same. Mine had been
Yeah.
down all those years from chronic
Yeah.
stress and medical school,
Yes.
internship, residency, two fellowships,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
100-hour work weeks. And by the way, this is anybody.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Lord, I mean, we got a link through I just saw you had a previous episode here on thyroid that was so well done. But like,
Oh,
I want every woman to listen. One of the most shocking things in the research I found for Busy Brain Cure was that 1 in 8 women in the United States has an undiagnosed subclinical thyroid
yeah.
disease. And if you're a sister like me with extra melanin, 1 in 4.
Right.
And
Yeah.
girl,
That's
I
amazing.
went to I was researching hormones and women's. I was like, I'm a doctor, like, oh, check, check, check. I think I got the thyroid. And I went to
Right.
doctors, male colleagues. They sat there
Yeah.
so proud just to pat me on the
Mm-hmm.
head and be like,
Mm-hmm.
your TSH is
Oh,
normal. And
yeah.
my hair, girl, was falling out in chunks. I
Yes.
could not
Yes.
focus. I was anxious. I had never had a regular menstrual cycle in my life.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't until I got sick, I had the surgery, I found my own integrative medicine practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
and they checked my labs that I realized, like, oh God. And it was 39 when I was diagnosed and had my first menstrual
Wow.
cycle. And I want to also say,
Wow.
I was put on thyroid medication that,
Uh-huh.
like, while I am a neurologist and integrative medicine doctor, there are important supplements and nutrition protocols
Right.
I do for thyroid, but there's medications. God, we're jumping
Sure.
10 steps ahead. But like, just I get fired up because if
Yes.
people don't listen to anything else in the podcast, chapter 16 of the book or the online
Yeah.
companion website, we have a full lab slip for you to
Yeah.
take to your
I saw
doctor if
that.
you have a busy brain, and they are covered by US insurance carriers.
Yep.
That's the
For
big
sure.
difference. That's why I was so excited.
Well, I think that's why I love your message so much too. And I did see that in the chapters of the book, that just giving people really what they need to be able to take to their doctors in order to advocate for themselves. I think that's one of the just greatest messages to give. And my heart goes particularly to women, but this is for men too. And just
Amazing. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
trying to
Yes.
advocate for your own health
Yeah.
and understanding and having someone like you be able to share that knowledge. Listen, this is exactly what you can take to them. Let them know this is what
Mhm.
yeah, all those things
Yeah.
are so important.
It
Yeah.
is. And because it was important to me, and this is not just being disrespectful to all of our functional integrated medicine colleagues,
Sure.
but girl,
Hmm.
that care is thousands of dollars a year
Right.
that we
I know.
pay.
I
And
know.
that is not accessible to most of America. And I am
Exactly.
here to serve. And I
Mhm.
thought, like, we have got to create a simplified system. So
Yeah.
colleagues of ours who are listening to this podcast who open my book, they're like, this is so basic. And I'm like, girl, I got 90% of the issues cleared to get people
Yep.
to the root cause of busy brain by traditional lab tests that are covered in the US
Yes.
health insurance system, and then
Yep.
affordable options for nutrition and supplements, minimizing the number of supplements. And that is just key.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Let's go back to, can you talk a little bit about how would you define the busy brain? Like, how
Yes.
do you kind of, yeah,
Yes.
how do you define that?
Okay. Like, busy brain has nothing to do with how many emails are waiting in your inbox, how many tasks
Right.
you have in Asana, who hijacked your schedule today. Busy brain is actually a term I give to a particular pattern of neuroinflammation in the brain that happens when we're under chronic stress.
Yeah.
So most of the advice that's out there in stress management, it is as outdated as the clothing I wore in the 1980s. And unlike fashion, they don't
You're
need to be
awesome.
recycled back, right? No,
Right. Right.
because they were valid, one, for maybe acute stress management, and also prior
Sure.
to the pandemic. All the research we were doing,
Good point.
the busy brain test, we started in December of 2020 and
Mm,
ended our research period in December of 2022. And that's really important to know.
yeah. Pandemic.
17,000 people took the busy brain test so that
Hmm.
I could understand what chronic stress and burnout in the pandemic and post pandemic
Yeah.
was doing to our physical, cognitive, and emotional health. So, here's the thing we found out: this particular pattern of neuroinflammation, and we can break down the neuroscience in a second,
Okay.
happens. And people have three key symptoms: adult onset ADHD, or an inability to focus;
Mm-hmm.
two, anxiety, particularly
Mm-hmm.
ruminating anxiety; and three, insomnia. Let's
Yeah.
break it down. You're listening
Yeah.
to
Let's
this
do it.
podcast and you wake up and you're like, oh, Heather and Romie are so chipper. Girl, don't talk to me until I have a venti latte, and with an extra shot of espresso with oat milk. And if they put whole milk in it, I'm going to be bitter and angry the
Right.
rest of the day.
Yes.
And you get to work or your home office and there are multiple screens. And listen, I have three open in front of me right now to run my
Right.
business,
Right. Right.
and multiple browser windows open on your brain. And something that should take 3 minutes, me sending a thank you email to Heather,
Mm-hmm.
my brain is hijacked for 37 minutes
Yeah.
over analyzing and low
Yeah.
key anxious. So you keep popping coffee, or maybe the doctor gave you Adderall or Vyvanse
Right.
or
Right.
Ritalin because it's now
Mm-hmm.
become a performance enhancing
Uh-huh.
drug in the United
Yeah.
States for adults.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, wait, I'm going to go home and stand on self care, like this said. I'm going to turn my schedule off. And you can't shut down your workday when you
Yeah.
get home or leave your home office. So you have a glass of wine or three to take the edge off. And if it's
Yeah.
not wine, it's a sedative drug like Ambien or
Yeah.
Xanax. And
Yeah.
then you put your head down on the pillow, and there are 72 boring conversations going on in your brain. And the loudest inner critic is the most insignificant factor for the day. And you will read in the book, when I
Yeah.
have a busy brain, because I still get it, they are the voice of my aunties and judgment in my brain. Like,
Right.
oh, hi, the video is on. You didn't put smoothing serum in your hair. It's frizzy. How are you going to find a second husband?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, that
Yes.
is what is happening to us. That is a busy
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. So it's, when you said the word, I think you said it, the rumination piece, I work with a lot of my clients. It's a lot of anxiety. It
Mm,
is ADHD symptoms. The piece that was interesting to me also is when you said that adult onset ADHD or ADD.
yeah,
Can you talk a little, because that's really interesting. We don't
it
talk
is.
a lot about that.
We
We
don't.
with ADHD, at least in my field, it's a lot of like you're diagnosed as a kiddo,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And so I get a lot of adults who come in, and it also, sorry, I'm going off on a little tangent here, but it's a little bit of a mix. Sometimes there's this overlap of anxiety symptoms as well as ADHD or ADD symptoms. But anyway, adult onset
No, thank you.
ADHD.
So let's break down two things you said. First of all, we in neurology, psychiatry, psychology
Mm-hmm.
got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety, ADHD in adults, and insomnia are not three separate diseases.
Yes,
Because what
exactly.
traditional Western medicine, and I'll say even sometimes in integrated functional medicine, we're doing is
Mm-hmm.
we're giving people stimulants to survive their day and a sedative to calm down at night. It's
Yep.
called the stimulant sedative addiction cycle. We need to break that,
Yes.
right? So
Agreed.
that's number one. Two is, you and I'm just going to myself, when I went to medical school, adult onset ADHD wasn't a thing.
Right.
That diagnosis has come up in the traditional medical field in the DSM criteria
Right.
in the last 10 years,
Right.
because society has changed. The sleep deprivation, the multi-digital device
Yeah.
use, there's so many factors, the environment, the toxins, everything that has literally changed the landscape of our
So
brain.
true.
And so this is a new diagnosis. So, there are two types that I really want to address here. There's
Okay.
ADHD, or what used to be attention deficit disorder. You don't have the
Mhm.
hyperactivity, which is now known as ADHD inattentive type, to
Right.
add all to the confusion. But
Yes. I was
I,
gonna
I call
say,
it
yeah.
ADD, attention deficit. That was missed in childhood, right?
Right.
I think if you're a elder millennial, a Gen X or boomer, that could have been commonly missed, especially in women,
Absolutely.
because women weren't
Mhm.
hyperactive in class. Even
That's right.
boys, you and I both work with men. They were just
Yep.
saying, oh, boys will be boys, and the diagnosis was missed. Fine.
Right.
Okay. But there is a group of people that were okay in childhood or borderline,
Mhm.
but the symptoms have become more severe in
Yeah.
adulthood. And that's the
Right.
population I work with. And it is larger than we realize.
Oh, yeah, I think it's huge out
Hmm.
there, and I think too, it's a lot of, if you're someone personally dealing with the busy brain stuff, and I think there's such normalcy in it. It's like everybody has so many of these same symptoms. So a lot of times if it's you experiencing it, you don't really even know something's, you don't feel good,
We've
but like you don't
normalized it.
know.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
Because you hear this over and over, that
Mhm.
you are the summation of the five people you are closest
Mm.
to,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
maybe we can say 5x that because we're on social media, many
Right,
people, and you're
right.
fed people that will match your interests.
That's
So
right.
we normalize that, and I appreciate that on social media we are talking about these symptoms, but we shouldn't
Mhm.
normalize it that it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
here to say that busy brain can deteriorate your brain or body, and it can kill you. It can cause
Yeah.
physical symptoms. And like, I don't want you to be there, my brothers and sisters. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm here with Heather today.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, directly on how when our brains are in that space, in the busy brain space, how is that? So we talked a little bit about thyroid and sleep.
Yeah.
Can you link the connection between what is going on and how that does directly, okay, impact hormones and
Everything, right? So let's
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about it. I'm going to break it down into simple terms because we have
okay,
both scientific and non-scientific audience here. So the
absolutely.
neuroinflammation pattern, this isn't something new. Back in the 1990s, when I started neurology residency, we talked about neuroinflammation as the
Hmm.
mechanism that would cause the brain changes in diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's,
Right,
MS.
right.
But in the last 7, 8 years, we've seen just being under chronic stress creates
Hmm.
neuroinflammation, an
Yeah.
elevation in inflammatory markers in the brain, like interleukin 1. Okay.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
specifically in one area, the hypothalamus.
Mm.
And that hypothalamus, I consider the airport traffic control tower of
Oh, I like
the
that.
brain, and the SCN nucleus, which governs our circadian rhythm. So
Hmm. Oh,
I
yes.
live in Orlando, Florida. You and I were discussing that. And if I were
Hmm.
to visit you in South Dakota,
Yes.
Delta Airlines is my boyfriend. They're in chapter 1 of the book. Describing the airport traffic control
I
tower.
love it.
Delta's operation teams is incredible. And they gave me a tour of Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson Airport. Fun
Cool.
fact, in the post-pandemic world, it is the busiest airport in the world,
Oh,
is
wow.
Atlanta.
Really?
Yes, yes, it
Fascinating.
is. And so when there is a summer storm that comes through
Mm-hmm.
the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport or any airport, we all are annoyed low key because your flight's delayed or canceled.
Right.
We just think of those people that are sitting there trying to get in and out of Atlanta to a connecting flight or wherever you're
Mm-hmm.
going. But it has a global implication that within seconds to minutes, flights are delayed and canceled. New
Right.
York, LA, even abroad to Hong Kong, London, Heathrow, Dubai. That's the way the airport traffic control tower in our brain works. It is like a global airspace with connections to the rest of our brain, governing
Mm-hmm.
our mood, our memory, our executive functioning, and every organ system in our body through two
Right.
key pathways, the autonomic nervous system and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Yes.
So, what does that mean? Like Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, you can get a direct flight to London Heathrow or to Dubai, or you can get through it through connecting airports.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way with the brain and our body. And so I share my story in the book that the chronic stress was showing up as severe digestion, swallowing
Mm-hmm.
difficulty, and then precancerous lesions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and for other people, it can affect your hormonal system, not only
Mm-hmm.
sex hormones, but thyroid, we've already addressed,
Right.
right?
Right.
Adrenal, also, your immune system. So autoimmune disease. So, everybody's busy brain pattern when it goes unchecked and into burnout can manifest a little differently. But that
Yeah.
earliest symptoms are the busy brain. I'm under chronic stress and it shifts to those symptoms. And so that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So really it does affect every part of us and every piece of our physical health, and especially as time goes on. So really important to start to figure out how we start to calm down the busy brain. I don't know if
Yeah.
you'd use that language.
I call
Your
it tame the busy brain because
Oh,
like
I
we're
love
high
it.
achieving professionals and it just feels
That
like you need to tame it and get
That's right.
control. Like we
That's
are high
right.
achieving professionals, calm or going with the flow. Lord, if one more person said that to us, we'll run over them with our wearable tech and designer shoes. We are high achieving professionals and make no apologies for our ambition, but
Yeah,
please
yeah.
don't do it with a busy brain, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So in your book, can you talk a little, I mean, you don't have to give details of the book, but talk a
Mhm.
little bit about what would be some practical
Yeah.
strategies? Like where would you
Mhm.
suggest if someone's listening right now and they're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, this is me." Where would you
Yeah.
suggest they start?
We're going to break it all down, but I know you are a phenomenal podcast of weight loss and
Mhm.
wellness. So could I use
Yeah,
it from that
thanks.
angle and people
Be
can get
great.
the book?
Perfect.
So the first thing is I'm a practical brain doctor. I want to know your brain score. Most people listening to their podcast know their credit score, right?
Right.
Do you know your brain score? So we will
Mm,
in the show notes here and on my social media and on my website for free take the busy brain test, the
I
same
saw
test
that.
that we use to test 17,000 people and get your score. I want to know, is it above a 30? Then we're seeing
Okay.
neuroinflammation and you're getting the symptoms of a busy brain. Above a 40, now we're heading into a, hey, red alert, I need to pay
Okay.
attention, right? So,
Mhm.
and by the way, Heather, that was 70% of people that took the test. I'm
Wow.
a
Wow.
award-winning keynote speaker. I'm
Yeah.
in audiences almost every week virtually and in person. And we're seeing the same right now in 2024 as the data
Wow.
wrapping up at 2022. When the audience is
Mhm.
polled or when we look at the data afterwards or we just look by a raise of hand, more than 75% of the audience will raise their hand that their score was
That's
above a
amazing. I'm
40.
not surprised, but
Mhm.
yeah, sad.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
every industry, by the way, every single
Yeah.
industry. So that's number one. Get your brain score. The
Mhm.
second step, I'm going to walk. It's an 8 week protocol, but I really
Mhm.
want to walk your audience through. You'll immediately be sent the week two of the protocol, which is the S in the shift in the brain shift protocol
Okay.
with the sleep and circadian rhythm.
Mm.
So you have that in your inbox already. I won't walk you through it, but it's all the cognitive behavioral therapy for
Yeah.
insomnia techniques and the right supplements to take to restore your sleep wake cycle. Could
Awesome.
we forward to what can be controversial in our holistic health community?
Yes, let's be controversial.
Girl, I am going to say the last thing anybody needs to do is be put on another cleanse, on another
Yeah.
diet, on another tasteless, regimented
You know I
protocol.
agree.
Oh, she
Mhm.
agrees.
I
Okay,
so
yay.
agree.
Thank you, sister. Yeah. I'm going to share it from my perspective, and then I've been so looking forward to this conversation to get your wisdom,
Oh,
Heather.
awesome.
Is my perspective is this: is we know from the neuropsychology, psychology data of dieting that when I put anyone on a protocol, I don't care what it is, whole 30, a juice cleanse, intermittent fasting,
Right.
things that have rigorous rules, it
Yeah.
actually will raise the cortisol levels of
Yes.
your brain.
Stress
And if
goes
your
up.
brain
Yeah.
score is already a 40,
Yep.
and even if you feel the initial dopamine hit of, yes, I food prepped, or yes, I
That's
lost
right.
a
I
pound and a
started it.
half, but
Uh-huh.
your cortisol levels are still high. And that's why when you
Yep.
come off of whatever nutrition protocol you were on, because we know most of them are not sustainable for people,
That's right.
you know, um, you gain the weight back because your stress
Yep.
hormones are like, help me, please go to the pantry and eat everything you told me I wasn't allowed to eat. Help
That's
me.
right.
Or we have a busy brain and our stress hormones are craving the carbs and the salty.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to do is put you on a diet. But if in the first 4 weeks we restore your circadian rhythm, some of that calms down. So that's my
Yes, for
point of
sure.
view. I'm going to tell people what we say to do instead. But my point of view is we welcome comfort food on the brain shift
Yeah.
protocol.
I've
People
heard
are
you talk
shocked.
about this. I have a question I was going to ask you about
Please,
this because
please,
I didn't want to leave it
yes,
out. I love this.
please tell me. Okay, tell me what you think. Because I'm so relieved you agreed with me. I was like nervous. You were
Oh,
gonna be like, "You're a doctor. You do integrative medicine. You're telling people not to eat a clean diet." Like, tell me what
no.
you think.
Yeah, no. So, and you maybe I kind of jumped ahead, but you have this thing about comfort food versus kind of like what stress eating is,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
you and I do share really similar philosophies.
Hmm.
I've listened to you talk about this, and the idea that our comfort food, the nostalgia, the coming together, the sharing, the all those things, like culturally what our food means is
Yes.
important
Yes,
and
girl.
should not be taken
Yes.
off the table, so to speak.
Yes.
But go ahead. You go ahead and talk.
Yes.
This is your thing. So, yeah.
No, no, I'm so glad you agree. Like, thank you for that. Like, I'm also a chief wellness officer. While I
Hmm.
was writing and researching this book for Evolution Hospitality, today for Great Wolf Resorts, we have a very diverse group of employees, over
Sure.
12,000 and growing
Culturally.
now.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
job as a chief wellness officer is that everybody feels like they belong, whether you are
Right.
vegan, paleo, a carb lover, a chocolate
Right.
lover, an intermittent faster, a confused eater. Everyone has a seat at the table without
Yeah.
judgment.
Yes.
And Lord, this diet and nutrition world is so judgy. What you're like, ooh,
It
how much
is.
protein's on her plate? Ooh, she didn't have enough
Right.
greens on her plate. Like, stop that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And comfort. So stress eating is I am eating to calm an emotion. I am
Right.
eating because stress hormones are elevated and I want the dopamine adrenaline hit of
Yep.
whatever food. It can be a carbohydrate, it can be a salty food, depending on the what stress is doing to your body.
That's right. Yeah.
You open a bag of something and consume the whole thing mindlessly.
Yeah.
Comfort food is that food that is tied to a core memory of joy. It could be a family
Hmm.
recipe, a memory from your religious holiday, your
Hmm.
ancestry, your state of origin. Um, in the book, at the end, we have an appendix of all my family and loved ones' comfort food recipes to share with the world.
Oh,
Because,
that's
and
cool.
the key thing with all of those comfort food recipes were they were shared with a loved one for
Yes.
joy. And
Yeah.
yes, they have carbs in them. Yes, they have sugar in them.
Right.
Yes, they have inflammatory
Right.
ingredients. And yes, my maternal grandmother, my nani's lamb biryani was a miracle. She would cook it and the whole neighborhood would gather. And girl, I ain't gonna lie to you, like warring
Hmm.
families would sit down and ancestral
Yeah.
beefs would be healed
Yeah.
over the lamb
Yes.
biryani. Like it
I
was all
love
love and
that.
joy. And that's
Yeah.
what it is. Do you have a favorite comfort food, Heather, from your life, family? Yeah, tell me.
Mm.
I'd love to know.
Favorite comfort food. People who listen to this podcast, they know I have a thing for cookies.
Okay.
So cookies are
Yeah,
kind of
cookies.
my thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love
My
it. Now,
my
is it a
my family
particular
wasn't
kind of
like the
cookie?
most amazing cook. So, yeah. What'd you
No,
say?
no,
Sorry.
a particular kind of cookie? Like, do you order them from
Mm.
a favorite store
Yes.
or okay.
Yeah, I do have a favorite place here that I do get them from. They're homemade. They're the real
Oh,
deal. So, yeah, they're
okay. I mean,
delicious. Yeah.
if you're not watching our video right now, you can see, feel,
The
hear
joy.
the smile and joy on Heather's face about homemade
That's right.
cookies.
About my cookies. Yeah.
And about my lamb biryani, and that's
That's right.
joyful food. So
Yeah.
on our protocol, we say, hey, 3 times a week, schedule the comfort food.
Yeah.
And bonus if you're doing it in person with someone
Yes.
else
Yeah.
and
Right. Right.
present with that meal. And that alone is so healing. And,
Yeah,
a
it
fun
is.
fact, Heather, that I think I really
Mhm.
haven't shared. Just a week prior to you and I recording this podcast, I'm
Mhm.
celebrating my 50th birthday. And
Oh, happy
thank
birthday.
you. Thank you, sister.
Yeah.
And by the way, following this brain shift protocol, I feel cognitively sharper and
Oh, that's
healthier
awesome.
today at 50 than at 25 when I
That
graduated from
is
medical school.
amazing.
Yeah,
I
I
love it.
praise God, really. But what I'll share is everyone wanted to know, we launched a USA Today, Amazon Audible best-selling book this year. I'm turning
Mhm.
50. Did you have a big party? And I said I wanted comfort food for my birthday. So I'm doing 50
Yes.
meals with loved ones around the world this year for
Oh,
comfort
how
food.
cool. That gave me goosebumps. That's
Yes.
really
It
amazing.
has been so joyful and
Mm.
reconnecting with a lot of people that honestly
Yeah.
it's 2024 and I still maybe haven't seen them since the pandemic in
Yeah,
person.
right.
And
Yeah.
that has
That's
been
really
that.
special.
And so with that, then you're like, well, what is the nutrition protocol then, girl? Like to help my busy brain. So week 5, it's
Mhm.
this simple. If you're going to eat a high glycemic carbohydrate like the rice and the biryani or those
Right,
homemade
right.
cookies, all of a sudden
Yes.
I want cookies, girl. I haven't wanted cookies in a long time.
Hi, everyone. Guess what? I have a lovely discount code just for you, my listeners. The code is 10 off. That's 10OFF, and it will get you 10% off any one of my online courses, which now include Mastering Mindful Eating, Overcome Binge Eating, Overeating, and Emotional Eating for Good. And I also have a course on When You Want to Stop the Weight Loss Medication, a comprehensive guide to weight maintenance and mastery. So if you've maybe lost some weight using a medication and you're now wanting to go off the medication but keep the weight off, this is the course for you. And any course you buy, you keep the course for a minimum of 3 years, maybe longer. It just depends on how many are purchased. All courses are self-paced, and I promise you they are practical, meaning they don't just tell you what you need to do. You actually engage in the skills and strategies needed to make actual lasting behavior change. You learn how to do the what. Okay, all courses have multiple modules with multiple lessons. All include lots of examples, tips, and tricks to make things simple and clear. And you also get lots of downloadable resources, including the daily planning template that I use with my own clients, the exact protocol to use after a binge or an overeat has occurred to minimize its damage on your body and your mind. There are protein cheat sheets, research-based journaling prompts, and the literal how-to checklists on the skill you are learning about. And with the weight maintenance course, you also have a movement module that will help you figure out how to make a movement plan that fits your particular lifestyle and level of fitness. And you also have a natural appetite regulation module. So whether if you have never tried an online course to change behavior, or if you have, I just highly would recommend that you try one of these. I've put my heart and soul into both of them. They are all research-based, and now you can get 10% off. So again, that code is 10OFF. If you're ready to make changes that last, you can go to my website, heatherheynen.com. Heynen is spelled Heynen. And from the main menu, click courses, and it will get you to where you want to go. Or you can click on the links in the episode description below the show. And again, as soon as you're there, when you're ready for checkout, just enter the code 10OFF, 10 off. And just a reminder, I also have an ebook cookbook that is now available. It's called Protein Forward Easy Recipes. It includes all high protein recipes, including breakfast and sweet treats full of protein and lunches and dinner. Okay, so again, head to my website. It's probably the easiest thing to do, heatherheynen.com. Heynen is spelled Heynen. And from there, go to courses or the cookbook. And again, use code 10 off at checkout.
I want to use my frequent flyer miles, come visit you in South Dakota so we can get cookies, sister.
You can come to, yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to do that, then no caffeine 1 hour before or prior.
I've heard you talk about this. Yes. This is such a great,
Isn't it fascinating?
I had never thought about it. And I've heard you talk, and it's like, this makes so much sense.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So in chapter 7 of the book, I break it down. Chapter 7 is we talk about the importance of caffeine and a story of Romie that my aunties used to say is sweet in the mouth, both with meals and the words you use. And that if you're going to have caffeine, for most people, highly beneficial for the brain. We know it binds with the adenosine receptors.
Yeah.
It will create alertness. It has so many other positive impact without doing it in excess. Here's the issue. When you put a high glycemic food, anything that spikes our blood sugar, white rice, white flour, white potatoes, in the brain in combination with caffeine, that insulin spike that now happens to bring down the blood sugar, not only in the pancreas, but the insulin receptor stimulated on the brain. That's like pouring gasoline on the forest fire of your busy brain and saying, I'm going to blow up the whole airport traffic control tower.
Sure.
And the symptoms now become this dysregulation of why you can't focus and why you're frazzled. And you're like, let me just pop another stress eating food. Right. Let me wolf down more. And so, yes, this can be difficult if you have a habit, like in our culture, of tea and biscuits or coffee and bagel and donuts. Like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But pick one or the other. And that's it. And so that's week 5. What do you think about that? And ask me questions. And
I think it's great. This is what I loved about when I was listening to you and I heard you talk about that. I love practical
Yes.
little strategies. I mean,
Yes.
that's really how I work
Yes.
with my weight loss clients. It's like any
Yeah.
of those little tiny things that are really doable, but
Mhm.
can have this really big effect. And so when I heard you talk about that with the caffeine and like basically sugar, high glycemic, it was like, oh yeah, totally. Like if that's one little shift you
Mhm.
could make, you can still have the caffeine. You
Yeah.
can still schedule in the little sugar
Yeah.
treat. They just don't go together.
And it's
It's a way
massive.
to go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah,
It's a massive because I really want to share most people that by the time they get to the protocol, they've improved or healed their
sure.
insomnia, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
which
so a
is
lot of the stress eating
huge.
has been mitigated. They're eating comfort food without guilt, and we
Yeah.
celebrate it. We put over 1,000 executives through this 8-week protocol to test it.
Hmm.
And what we found by week 8 was most people, high achieving people, are going to pick caffeine all day long, myself included, girl. Give
Yeah,
me the
me too. Yeah,
caffeine.
yeah, yeah.
Hello. Yes, Auntie needs her chai without sugar. I
Right,
use
right.
stevia. I'm big into matcha these days, whatever you
Oh,
want.
cool. Yeah.
But do that. And most people found not only did they have reduced brain bloating, but belly
Hmm.
bloating as well.
Yeah,
And
sure.
to that point of weight loss, that it's like this compounded effect of you feel good because you're one to
Yeah.
two pant sizes smaller in under
Right,
8 weeks.
right,
But then
right.
also the inflammation is down in your gut from not stressing out and reducing it, that you're not
Yeah.
having those food cravings, the stress eating as
Yeah.
much. It's compounded. It's beautiful.
Yeah. No, it's such a trickle down effect to all of those things. So yeah. So anyway, I do love that because it's just this one little thing that is pretty doable, especially
Yeah.
with a little bit of practice. And you still
Yes.
get the thing. You still get the
You still
caffeine. You
get the
still
thing.
get,
You still
yeah,
get your caffeine.
exactly.
You just can't put
Yeah.
it all together. So be careful what
That's
you're
right.
getting through the drive-through at your favorite coffee shop, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we have appendix in the book. So I recommend, and you can add, I typically recommend the stevia.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
Truvia.
Yeah.
In a coffee drive-through, I don't think monk fruit is available.
Yeah.
Not so much a fan of, honey in your caffeine, only
It
because the
still
medicinal
fights.
effect. Yeah, and the medicinal effect of honey is only beneficial if you take it raw or cold.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you just random side note? Do you know anything about allulose at all?
Tell me
Do
about
you?
it. No. Yeah.
Well, it's just another sweetener, but I had just seen a research study that came out in regards to, it showed that I think it was, don't quote me on this, 5 to 10 grams before something else sugary actually steady blood sugar did not go up. It's just it's sort
Mm.
of interesting. It was
I'm gonna
newer.
look into it.
So and I used to bake with allulose.
Mhm.
This was a while ago, and then I shifted to raw stevia. Anyway, I just saw this thing, and I thought
Okay,
maybe
but
if you knew
everybody just
anything.
heard you say, "I bake with allulose," and everyone's like, "Ooh, that sounds like a chemical. What's my cookie or my cake gonna taste like?" Okay, so that's the next question. What did it taste like? Did it
Yeah,
alter the
no,
taste?
it was all right. It's probably though why I switched and just started trying stevia instead. I mean, I like to experiment with all that
Yeah.
stuff. At this point, Romy, I am just going to the cookie shop
Yes,
that
girl.
makes the best cookies with real sugar.
I'm coming
But
I'm
I'm
coming to
not
visit.
having caffeine with
There
them.
you
So,
go, and
yeah.
enjoy that, right? Because it's
Yeah,
that
I
joy
do.
again that we feel. So here's the next step. Week 6,
Okay.
we go
Hmm.
into fats are not the enemy for your brain. Fats are the
Yeah,
fuel for your brain. They are the fuel for focus.
right.
Most people, part of the ADHD crisis is that healthy fats have been omitted from our
Yeah.
diets for
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
decades now. So kind of in the 80s and 90s, these high glycemic carbohydrates replaced healthy fats in the low fat foods and all
Yep.
the processed packaging. And it really affected our brain and hormonal
Yeah.
health. It's
Yeah.
the same for children today. I ask you to do one thing. We have an appendix in our book online. Um, Pick 1 to 2 healthy fats and
Hmm.
add them to every meal. It can
Yeah.
be as basic, like I'm a busy woman. I ain't no chef like my nanny. I just take 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil and put it in whatever I'm
Perfect.
eating. In the morning, I'll use coconut oil,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nuts. I was on a podcast and someone's like, "Oh, this is so great. My clients who travel a lot travel with anchovies." And I was like,
Yeah.
that's just nasty. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I was supposed to curse
Oh,
on
you
your
can swear.
podcast.
You can curse. You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, "That's just nasty." And then I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm a frequent flyer and I do carry on only. And I'm like,
Right.
I am sure I'm gonna get flagged by TSA for a can of anchovies, and then they're going to open it and the drug sniffing dogs are going
No
to come,
doubt.
and
No
then it's going to
doubt.
be
Yeah.
all over the news. Dr. Romie was stopped with a suspicious substance in the airport. Like, no, I mean, if you like
Right.
anchovies, no problem. But the
Right.
whole thing was keep it simple. Because
Yeah,
I
I
was like,
agree.
how expensive are those cans of anchovies? And
Yeah.
she was like, and then she had some like,
Very.
online thing place you order them from. I'm like, be practical, because when you're on an airplane for 4 or 5 hours and you can
Yeah.
get a snack, they now have nuts as snacks. They have almonds, they have
Right.
pistachios. Like,
Right.
keep your life simple, sisters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Anything simple and easy, I agree,
Yes.
is the way to go. And also keeps our brain from having to be so busy.
Yes.
So those
It is.
simple, practical strategies are
Yeah.
so important.
It
Yeah.
is. And by the way, and to go back to our coffee and
Yeah.
matcha thing, is the MCT oil in the coffee and the
Oh,
matcha.
sure.
We know the studies of the additive effect of having caffeine and, the medium chain fatty acids, the oil.
Yeah.
Oh my God, just it'll keep you focused all day long.
Yeah. No, that's
Mhm.
awesome. That's interesting. I used to do MCT oil in my coffee. That was a while ago. I haven't done that in a while. I'm kind of glad you
Yeah,
brought that up
because the
because that was
trend
good.
went out, right? And
That's probably what it was.
it
Yeah,
is. And then
seriously.
we're on to the
Yeah.
latest trend of whatever's
Right.
trending right now. And I
Right,
think
right. So
that's the
true.
problem with the health and wellness thing is, listen, like, if something's working, don't jump to the
Yeah.
next trend.
Yeah,
Like,
right,
this isn't
right.
fashion where people make fun of me for wearing my skinny jeans right now, like, whatever. Like, if the MCT oil was working, which,
Yeah.
by the way, I just want to acknowledge that some of these big brands that are really popular in the United States,
Mhm.
this was culturally appropriated from my ancestors in South Asia, East
Yeah.
Asia, and the African subcontinent, where we did put, ghee and
Yeah.
clarified butter and substances
Yep.
like this in coffee for the Sherpas, the people who trek in the mountains, or
Yes.
laborers who are working all day and they needed the calories and the energy and the
Right.
focus, right?
Right, right.
To help sustain them. So this is like ancient wisdom. So let's not
You
like just
bet.
jump from one trend to another. It's
Yep.
much easier to use the MCT oil, and they come in lovely flavors, and
Yes, they
you know,
do. Yeah.
hmm yeah. hmm
Awesome. Okay, so so in the book it kind of moves through that. Is there any other parts of that you want to talk about that on practical level that maybe people could try? Any other tips?
Yes. I really want to go back to something I opened with at random, because you
Sure.
said the word and I got derailed, but I want you to be like Kelly. She is a high achieving sales executive you will read about in chapter 16 of the book.
Mhm.
She is a mother of young children, was winning sales awards in the company, and nobody knew she was ready to quit from crippling anxiety. And
Mm.
her doctor told her, "You're just a tired working mom."
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And and she begrudgingly signed up for Brain Shift because their company was and her team was. And something propelled her to take the lab slip that's in chapter 16 of the book and go to her
Mhm.
primary care doctor, who, the one that called her a tired working mom, and you probably need to
Right.
choose between your children and your job. And they got the labs,
Mhm.
and to the doctor and her shock and horror, her thyroid was completely abnormal,
Yeah.
to the point it
Yep.
raised the red flags. They did an ultrasound and there was a tiny nodule that was
Oh
stage 1
my.
earliest cancer.
Yeah.
Her only symptoms were those ruminating anxiety and I can't focus. That is 40% of men and women that have an undiagnosed thyroid disease. I'm
Yes.
anxious and I can't focus.
Yes.
And so please go get the labs. We have separate lab slips for men and women. We check all
Cool.
hormones, markers of inflammation. And again, as I mentioned, we've double checked it with most major insurance carriers in the
Most will
United
cover.
States, and
Yeah.
most are covered. Now, you can't just walk in and be like, "What's up? I'm doing good. I read this book. Can you check these labs?" Insurance won't cover
Right.
it. But if you say, "I am chronically stressed, I can't focus, I am tired, I am
Exactly.
suffering," the doctor will check the labs. And if the doctor is not
Yeah.
sure about some of them, you know what? Give them a copy of my book. They're going to see
Yeah.
everything is referenced, what exactly to do with it. They will get it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just add one little thing because this was actually my personal story
Yeah.
in regards to the
Please.
thyroid. And I did, I would just say to listeners, if you do this, if you have a doctor who says, no, I'm not going to do that. I had that happen twice where I had everything. I went in with the symptoms. I knew what I wanted tested. And two times where, and maybe this South Dakota thing, I don't know, but she and he would not would not
Mm,
put in for the labs.
yeah. Yeah.
But I did go to a third doctor, and that
Good.
one did say absolutely. So just to tell listeners, even
Yes.
when you're advocating for yourself, like if your doc says no, but you really want this done, try another doc. I mean, it
Try
is your
another doc.
health.
Yes,
Yeah.
and here's the other hack we have for you, and it's directly on my website. I've partnered with Rupa Health. They
Oh, yeah,
will
I
draw
use
the
them.
labs in all
Yeah.
50 states.
Yeah, that's who
I
I
don't
use.
make a profit from it. So they took our
Mhm.
brain shift lab list,
Mhm.
and it's on my website. And they,
Cool.
because I'm not licensed in every state, Heather, they
Sure.
have doctors licensed in every
Yes,
state.
who can
So
approve.
you
Yeah.
get to go to a LabCorp or Quest
Yep.
Diagnostic, get your labs drawn,
Yep.
and a doctor will review them for you that is
Yes.
licensed in that state. So,
Yeah, so awesome.
and by the way, it's just a few $100s as opposed to
Yep.
when I or you go to our integrative functional medicine doctors.
Yep.
This exact lab panel out of
Thousands.
pocket was like $4,500. I was, oh my
Exactly.
God. Yeah.
I love that you brought that up, because that's such another great point, that we are in a day and time, thankfully, where that piece can be solved in that way as well. We have where you can just go get we have these online lab companies where, yeah, you can just go get your blood drawn and someone else can do it if you can't find a doc who will do these things. So great point. Anything else you want to add?
I will end with this is, we can feel lonely in today's world, even if we're
Mm,
connected to thousands digitally. I remember walking the hospital corridors in a really dark place. And do you know, Heather, not a single colleague asked me if I was okay.
yeah.
They knew something was wrong. You could just
Mm-hmm.
tell by my
Mm-hmm.
body, my face that I was struggling. They were gossiping about me because some of the EEG techs told me that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it felt so dark and lonely. And so, one of the best things you could do, if you're listening to this saying, hey, I'm good, my busy brain score was under a 30,
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to look around. And my aunties diagnosed my condition perfectly. They said it was as if the lights are on and nobody is home. Is there
Yeah.
somebody in your life where the lights are on and nobody is home? Could you go to them and just tell them, I am here, I care, and you're not alone? And I think that is like, we started the podcast that way. I wanted to end this way,
I love it.
for all that we're going through, because a busy brain can put you in a really dark place. And
So true.
when you heal and you do the brain shift, that voice of judgment or the aunties turn into one of wisdom and hope. And that is who
Yes.
Heather and I are sitting here as, is that,
That's right.
holding that hope here for everyone.
I love that so much. Well, I just really appreciate you. I really, really respect and appreciate everything that you're putting out into our world. You are such a you can just tell you are such a compassionate heart, a helper and a healer. And I do just really appreciate you and everything that you shared with us today. And I'm getting the book. So and I hope my listeners do too. I
Thank
think
you.
it sounds like it can be very helpful and healing. So thank you, Dr. Romie. I appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Heather.
Did you know you can find a lot more help from me on my website? Go to heatherheynen.com. Heynen is spelled Heynen, and there you will find links to my online courses, how I work with clients one-on-one, as well as online with my coaching and counseling services that I offer. The information in this podcast is intended to provide a broad understanding and knowledge of healthcare topics. This information is for educational purposes only and should not be considered complete and should not be used in place of advice from your physician or healthcare provider. We recommend you consult your physician or healthcare professional before beginning or altering your personal exercise, diet, or supplementation program.